Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast from Whitehall Learning. I am, as always, Morten Røvik, and I'm here with a smiling Lars Rothskild Hendriksen, who almost heard me say GTD Nordic, which is what we used to be called back in the olden days. We are now Whitehall Learning. So, привет, Lars.
Привет, Morten, and also aloha. There was a Hawaiian listener that commented on YouTube. So, aloha to you.
Aloha. Thank you for listening on Hawaii.
Yes, exactly. And good to see you as always, and good to be here with our listeners. We always start off with a quick reminder with the purpose of this podcast, which is to help you learn GTD or become even better GTDers. So we hope that today's episode supports you in that. If you're new to GTD, we always recommend you go back and listen to the first episodes 1 through 6. Go through the 5 steps. And today's episode is number 78 of the podcast. And today's episode is a listener questions episode.
Yes, it is. And we have handpicked carefully 3 listener questions today that we are going to try and answer at the best of our ability. So should we just dive in, Lars? What's the first listener question?
Let's do that. So yes, so this one, first one is from, let me double check that I copied this in correctly. Yes, so this one was from Achim in Münster in Germany. And he says, hi, Lars and Morten. I have been enjoying your podcast a lot, and I think it really helped me get a better understanding of the GTD approach. Great to hear that, Achim. One point that I find confusing, however, is the apparent lack of prioritization and evaluation of tasks and projects. Sure, levels of horizons and so on before the complex system you described in the last episode. I suspect that was on the transition episode from talking about going from GTD Nordic to Vital Learning. I think it said something like, and I quote here, no milestones, only repetition of desired outcome and next action. But then, is there ever a point where you evaluate explicitly whether the whole project is worth starting/continuing and how it compares to alternative projects you could spend your time on? Similarly, I get the impression that you should just write down the next action even when getting an overview would require understanding the whole way to the goal. Greetings from Münster in Germany, Achim.
Well, great question, Achim. The short answer, yes, we prioritize, and yes, we evaluate all the time. So, okay, next question, no. No, but just I want to grab hold of this prioritization part of getting things done is that yes, you prioritize all the time. When you decide what to do today, it's we try to do that on the best possible and best possible value-based prioritization based on what's important right now. So you prioritize by putting things on the calendar, by saying this is the most important things I can do today. And we also use the calendar for doing next actions, specifically if they take a little time. And that's a way to prioritize your calendar. And then, but when you go and look at your next actions, then you pick what you find is the most valuable for you in the context you have the time and energy available. So we do prioritize. And anything to add on this, Lars, and on the prioritization day to day?
I think going back to just the clarify step, that question of is it actionable? Well, that is in a sense a priority question, right? Because that even starts you off with what are you going to put on those lists? And that decision, I always try to emphasize this when I introduce people to GTD, and it's something that you don't see when you start off with GTD, because when you start off with GTD, basically all the things that show up on your attention, well, that's all actionable. So that yes, that's actionable. Yes, that's actionable. And then as you start to progress and you have a better overview, and now you have your list of 25 projects, something new comes up, then that, is it actionable question just takes on a different character, because now you actually have a list of things you've committed to, and then making the decision to commit to one more thing or actually saying no, that's maybe part of the first prioritization that you can come across there. And then I think maybe also the question comes from a project which is complex. So there are, with the broad sense that we define projects in GTD, there will be some pretty mundane projects. I have to sign the new lease on the company car, for example. Pretty straightforward, a number of steps, mostly handled by the leasing company, but nevertheless a project in my system, and that'll just require a project and a next action. That's all there is. But in some more complex projects, there will be some need, for example, for support material to help you get that overview and help you make a trusted choice as to what to prioritize in any given time. And as I maybe have mentioned since, I have started using, for example, OmniPlan to be able to make that Gantt chart and get that better overview that I felt that I needed. So perhaps this could also, the question could be coming from a project that requires more in-depth review, and perhaps with Gantt chart, perhaps with a document outline, perhaps with natural planning model, whatever it might be. I think that could also be where the question comes from.
Yes, it could be. And what is different between getting things done and a lot of other, I wouldn't call them methodologies, but ideas out there, like time management? Like, and I come back to my pet peeve there, you can't manage time. It's a constant, get real. The only thing that you actually can manage is your focus. What am I focusing on right now? And the old time management system where ABC prioritization is flawed, just because when you have a manageable numbers of projects, then it's probably possible to do that. But then you have to, if something becomes, I talked about this before in the podcast, that if you have an ABC, you have an A project, that's the most important. What happens if that suddenly have to go down to, you find something even more important that's you have to prioritize? Then what happens to the A's, and what happens to the B's, and what happens to the C's? Should you make an AA, or should you move all the B's down to C, and the C becomes what? D? And then suddenly you spending a lot of time managing a system based on a very fluent our world changes all the time, and the best fluent way of deciding what's important right now is to have a full overview of absolutely everything you committed to do something about, all you might want to do something about, and even those things you parked for, I want to get to this, but not right now. When you have that, it's so much easier to make that prioritization in the moment, where you see that, okay, I have half an hour, I'm in this context, I have this time available, and my energy level is at this height. What suits me the best to work on right now? And that makes it very fluent. It's like water trying to find the fastest route to to the sea. How can we finish this the fastest?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I noted down evaluating is that you do evaluation when you look at your calendar. What am I working with today and tomorrow? What's on my lists, on my next actions lists? So you evaluate where you are often, and you do it really thoroughly once a week when you do the weekly review, where you look at absolutely everything that's in your world, on your lists and on your calendar, and trying to find out, am I doing the right things now? Am I moving in the right direction now? So, anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think also to address maybe the second part, similarly, I get the impression that you should just write down the next action, even when getting an overview would require understanding the whole way to the goal. That's also part of the reason why I assumed that this was maybe a more complex project. And, yes, we would still define the next action because that's how you get things done. But then, of course, if you don't have the overview, and that is what you need, then that is the next action, right? I had this morning, actually. I worked with a coaching client, virtual coaching. We were talking about we were doing a natural planning model on an employer branding strategy. And we walked through some of the things. A lot of cool things came up. And I started to dive into some of the topics that came up. And she said, oh, I don't know that. Well, yeah, great. That's, good realization to come to. So how would you find out? Who do you need to talk to? Where do you need to Google? Who do you need to call? What's then the next action, right? So that is also still something to keep in mind. I still come across that sometimes, that people will hesitate maybe to define the next action because they don't know what it is. Well, then figure out what it is. Then that is the next action. How would you find out, right?
Exactly. I come back to the very funny linguistic episode where we talked about the depth, the tire thread depth gauge. Gauge, not gouge.
Yes.
Okay, gauge. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Renee from Norway helped us out on that one, just like engaged. So thanks, Renee.
Okay, gauge. Okay, so the idea with that, or this example, was that you don't know exactly what to do, and you don't know, you haven't found you've found maybe your desired outcome, but all the steps in between are muddled for you. So to taking the time to look through this, and when you have, like we have, and we always have had in our world, more or less, both you and me, and I'm sure all other GTGers in the world, products where you didn't exactly know what you wanted to be true at the end. You didn't have a desired outcome first. It was muddled. It was unclear. You didn't even know if you were going to do something about this. But to clarify if you're going to do something about something, like clarify if we need another office. This is just to take the time to note that down and find the next action. That might be enough to get you moving in the right direction. So you don't need the end. You don't even need the end result. You just need actually understanding which direction am I moving now, and what's my next actions for moving in that direction. So
exactly. So thanks, Akim. I hope I mentioned your name right. Akim Foss, I guess you would pronounce it. And it may be that his name actually mixed a bit with the second one, which is probably what happened with my notes. The second one was from Ivan Weiss. He says, hi again, I know, and we've touched on this one earlier. Hi again, I know I had emailed prior, but wanted to ask another question. I do enjoy the podcast. I always enjoy the listener question answers episode. We do too, so please keep them coming. He says, I find that when using GTD and OmniFocus, which has been my go-to tool, I have the ability to procrastinate quite a lot. With GTD, since we are trained to avoid due dates, it's a self-discipline to make sure I'm moving things forward, and I need to take the mental time to figure out what that is. I've been exploring time blocking and AI assistance with time blocking. SchedPal is the tool that I'm using right now, as it does the mental lift on balancing my work schedule and priorities and bringing my next actions to me as I can do them. I'm finding quite a bit more productive and really enjoying the experience. I was curious to hear your thoughts on such tools, and if you have had any experience with them. Things I would let slide by are now getting worked on, and I'm spending no time deciding what to do in lieu of just getting them done. Thanks.
Yes. Since then, I promised I would have a look at SchedPal, which I have. And I will talk about that in particular a little later, but I want to start with the fact that the using of a calendar, it's in the GTD system. It's a tool for make sure that you are doing the most important things, so you can block time for yourself so that you can work on the most important things and make progress on projects that might have stalled for a while, or became stale, so that you need to move them forward faster. Then you block some time in the calendar to do that. And I have looked at different solutions, and I know that there are things coming down the pipeline that I am sorry, but I can't talk about, but that are to do with an NDA that I some time ago signed with the Microsoft, that there are some interesting things coming. This I can tell. And one of the things that I want to address is that you cannot, or you should not, take out the thinking process in decision making. There is no AI on earth who can take into consideration all the moving parts that makes up your life and your energy level and where you are to make sure that you have a good plan for the next week. That is not possible. Or it could be possible, but then you are a slave of a machine, and you might not feel that you have the freedom to decide, because that's the beauty of getting things done. You can decide what you think is the most important thing to do right now.
And my thinking has always been on that topic, that if we get to that stage where the machines can actually define that, then the machines can probably also do the work. So, yeah. So you might not be needed in that scenario after all.
Exactly. So I hope we will never get there. So, but the AI to make decision for you, I'm not comfortable with thinking about, and I just want to on a general basis say that if you do a really thorough weekly review on a regular basis, every week preferably, and you will make better decisions on what you should work on, the weekend, and just be aware that you could by doing this, put things on your calendar yourself. That's possible. You can see into your calendar and block out time to work with the most important things yourself. That said, I had a look into Schedpal, and I want to divide this in two parts. One part is going to happen, talk about the Schedpal, because I did a trial with them to see what this is, and I want to talk about the functionality, and I want to talk about the company, and because those things are linked together. Talking about the functionality, what you do is that to have this work the best, you should consider connecting this to your company calendar, and maybe even your personal calendar. I don't know, and as far as I could see, you can only do this with one type of calendar. You can't have two calendars at the same time. So you can't have, for instance, Google or G Suite calendar for your company, and then a Gmail calendar or an iCloud calendar on the same at the same time, which makes it a little limited, because I prefer not. I like to be able to see what I'm scheduled doing this weekend on my work calendar as well, because that shows me the whole load of my life in one place. But that said, if you can live with the one calendar thing, then we come to the next part, which is you can use this as a GTD system. Actually, I like the task part of this really well. It's very bare bone, clean. And very easy to use and understand, where you can start with your spheres, private, personal and work, and you can then divide it by increments down there, or indents, and you can very easily focus on a project or on an area of focus. So you can actually build a fully fledged GTD system in this. And then when it comes to because the magic there, if there is a magic here, then it is that you can actually tell when you want to work on this. And what it does, you can tell, I like tasks in this category to go in the mornings. If I have some high yield tasks where I need to really be focused, it would be between 9 and 11. And then I could tell the system is that I want to focus on this project now, put my next actions on my calendar, and it would do it for you. And it could reschedule easily, and it's easy to move around things. So my first impressions with this is that it has a lot of potential. If you are going to try out SkedPal, there are two things you need to know is that you should be careful on both the two notions. Maybe as one notion is that this time blocking on your calendar can take overhand. You can go overboard by doing this a little too much. So you block too long time into the future on your calendar to work on projects. So maybe my personal preference is, and what I suggest for people to do, don't schedule things too far into the future. Maybe tomorrow and the day after is maximum what you should prioritize. Put things on your calendar, and I suggest that you put things on your calendar that takes more than maybe 30 minutes to do if on the day itself, and shorter spans than that, like 10, 15, 20 minutes could go on your all day events. So you can be reminded, I have half an hour now. What do I need to do? Then you're already prioritize what you want to do when you have the time. And the second thing I would like to mention when it comes to this time blocking technique is that make sure you have air between the gaps, between your task, because you are a lot of people that I coach and I train have three things in their personalities. Is that they are yes people, they are easily saying yes. They are time optimists, so they think things take shorter time than it normally will, and they have what I call, they have a conscience that is a little bit too well developed. So, and with that I mean that they are easily feel bad about their own person if they don't deliver. So be careful about overloading yourself. Remember, you should breathe. You should remember that life is good, and you should not just work. You should enjoy life in between as well. And that said, my last part is going to be the beware part. Is that I looked at the company behind this, and it is in the United Arab Emirates, the company, and they are then under this law. So that is a little tickly, because it's not in a district that we know very well. If you are from this region, hurrah, then you know this because if you have a conflict with them, it will be settled by the UAE law. And I couldn't find anything on the website regarding to who the owners are. I find the reference to a company that owns this SkedPal service, but I couldn't find anything else about this company at all, the people behind. So it's a little. Remember that you are handing, if you are going to work this well, you will hand them the keys to your kingdom. That is your calendar. And maybe even the login information, not login information, but because you use AOth, I think, for the login, but it's still, they can delete your calendar. So be careful who you give those keys to, and everything is a risk. Being alive is a risk. You can risk dying, and you can be online and you can be hacked. Yes, that's a result of being online. But just be careful with what you sign up to. I would be doing my due diligence a little thorougher than I could if I could, to find out who's behind this company. That is people.
And what's the business model? Is it you pay per month, or how does it work?
It's a pay per month or per year. There's two tiers. And I just want to say this. I don't want to be overly skeptical or overly critical here. Is that I liked the idea. I liked the possibility to just tell I want to do this on Thursday, and it found the best time to do this on Thursday with the gaps that I wanted. So it has the functionality that you might want to look for. But remember, it can't think for you, and you have to be, mindful of who owns this service at the end of the day. And it might be that you can't use this because your employer don't accept that you use a third-party service like this. So
yeah, certainly something to look into as well. Absolutely.
So that's my 2 cents worth on Schedpal.
Yeah, no, but that was really interesting to hear, and great that you went and had a look. One thing that I would be concerned with, and that's perhaps a setup that you can make just from a GTD perspective, is the continuous challenge for most people to have room for the unplanned work. So just keep that in mind as well when setting something like this up, that you can actually go in there and block time. And that goes for, the Google scheduler and the Microsoft scheduler as well, that have these options now to go in and block room for yourself. Certainly keep room for that as well in your calendar if you're using a schedule like this.
Yeah, and we both use schedulers where you can book our time if you want to talk to us. You set up a meeting with us, but as we both know, that is possible in that what we use for scheduling software is that you can set up how much gap do I want to have in the front end and the back end of a meeting, and that is the key of make sure that you have time for this. So I have a lot of events on my calendar just called placeholder, because I want to make sure nobody else steal that time, because I know that maybe I need to answer emails, or I have some work that I need to get done on that day, or I need to have the freedom to use that day as it shows up. So placeholder is you will find that in my calendar. So
I have my planned work dash can be moved, so people can internally see if they can if there are no other spots, then maybe I can find a workaround.
They can try and wiggle themselves into that time. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. The last email was from Frans. I'll pronounce it in Danish. He says, and I'll try to translate this on the fly. He says, "Hi, Morten and Lars. Thanks for a great series of podcasts. I have succeeded in establishing a GTD system, basically based on the podcast episode. So he has given us 5 stars in Spotify. Thanks so much for that, Frans. Also, his girlfriend is Norwegian. He is Danish, so it's even more relatable for him with all the personal experiences that we then share across the 2 countries. So he asked us to keep doing that, and I think we will just naturally do that. His email was relating, he was asking for an episode regarding emails. And he apologizes if we already made one about this. He's trying to Google it, but didn't really find something of value. 2 questions in his email. First one would be, how do you set up an email account the GTD way so you get to inbox 0? He clarifies that he's struggling to get to the bottom of his work emails and really get to that 0 email. Basically, everything relevant has been responded to or archived, and all the irrelevant stuff has been deleted, but he has a pile of emails that he doesn't really know where to place, and he keeps moving them back and forth between folders. So maybe I'll pause the question there, and we can tackle that one first. How do you do that, Morten?
That is a very big question. No, just to address that in what we call bring your ins to 0, and that is a process that you need to get good at. And there, he's not alone in the moving of emails. I see that a lot, and I also that when you have an email, you have what I call email residue. There's some sediments that's that you can't get rid of. The 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 emails that you can't seem to rid yourself of in the inbox. And just to address that first, I think that the reason that they are there for most people is that either you have not been able to clarify what it means to you and what you need to get, what you need to do with it, or it's part of something you wait for further confirmation by others. And Yeah, and you know that people tell me, oh well, I'm fine with having 10 emails in my inbox that I can't get, I can't seem to get rid of. But when you do get to 0, that is always a big relief for everybody, because then it feels like, I have full overview, I have full control. So clarifying everything, and I mean everything. And the problem here is that you're scared of organizing because you haven't clarified. That's good, because if you organize without clarifying, you are just dragging unclear stuff into your list. So good on you that you're not doing that. Yeah. But if you are having that's not your problem. But the second part is your problem. Then maybe you should pull that into and you just create a waiting for instead, and just drag it to your sent items or just archive it. So what's your take on this, Lars?
I absolutely agree. Focusing on the clarify step must be where we would start with this to figure out, so what do they actually mean? Why are they being moved around? So one item could be the clarification thing, that the decision hasn't been made and you're waiting for information, for example. That could be a good example. I think the other component could be that we're dealing with things that don't have a place to go to. So he'll be moving them back and forth because he doesn't really know where they go. So when he's clarified something, he doesn't know where to put it. So that could reflect perhaps somewhere in his system that he's missing a place for these things. And the action might be to then set that up. And it could be, new folders that needs to be set up when it comes to archiving things. It could be a waiting for folder. If you are, waiting for someone else, it could be the action folder. That would be the simpler, easier approach to keep actionable emails in a separate folder like this. That would be a common GTD approach to respond to that one. What I often find with emails like this is often that it will be support material. It will be support material, and
that was my thought as well.
That really depends on what kind of systems you're using. Are you using Gmail with Todoist like me? Are you using Outlook and you're working in To Do? Are you using X, Y, and Z, Apple Mail and OmniFocus, whatever it might be for you? So that could also be an example of this, that he does not really have the right place to place these. And part of the reason why I also mentioned that is in relation to his second question, which does lead me to think that, which is, do you have any tricks in formatting or attaching emails to projects or next actions, for example, on a to-do list? It seems to be the case for me that it often becomes a double entry to either redefine the topics and content so they fit on the list to then work from, and perhaps difficult to find that email back again, or that it will be these less pretty, let's say, items on a list that needs to be reread again and again, copy pasted back into the system, which I think is what you referred to before as moving unclear things into the system.
Yeah. I'm just thinking that having a folder structure on your in your email that serves you well, and having, I wouldn't say the corresponding system, but not far from it when it comes to file and folders on your either in the cloud or on your PC or Mac is good. And let's say that I have a project called, I'm just going to make something up. We are setting up an office in Stavanger. And so the project will be new office in Stavanger, established, well-functioning, something like this, and a smiley, because that's how I roll. And sometimes, not always, but and then my a short version of that will be, for instance, if I know that this is going to generate a huge amount of files or emails, I would then have the same new office in Stavanger established in both as an email folder, as an action support or project support folder, where I can drag and drop emails, and the same in my Google Drive for files that are not, you know, sometimes you see files that are not part of an email, then you have to have a way to store that as well. So it's going to be, I need to have that somewhere. And you can also use like OneNote or DevonThink or, you know, Evernote or some of that, you know, the same. You can then store files and emails and stuff in there, so you can find them again. That's also a possibility. So just for having a way to, you know, I understand that this email is important to this project or this next action. Where does that go? And you can have then a folder called the same name as the project, and then you decide outcome of the project, and then you can then just either link to that or just refer yourself to that in the project description. So please, you know, see corresponding folder. One thing that I would like to say about just make sure that people understand that project, you know, folders are supposed to be or you know, the action support and project support folders are not supposed to be there for forever. They're supposed to be there until the project is finished, and you need to have an archive for your projects as well, so you can archive that project, or else it will be just clutter. Because I mean, I sometimes see people, fairly often actually, that have like hundreds of, or if not hundreds, then tens of folders that are, you know, old and smelly, and they're not functional. So and just this visual clutter in their email folder. So create an archive and then just drag that folder there. So when the project is finished. Anything to add to that thinking?
Yeah, no, I was just reflecting on where, you know, generally my support material, where that shows up, and it, you know, it can be in the physical world. It has, you know, I have my inbox, and below that I have the support material folder that I still use for some things that I have printed and need to review, for example, on paper. There'll be some files, and then most of it will be in digital form, typically in Todoist or in OneNote. And it really comes back to where you know, where you live and what you've set up. I was, you know, we had a talk in one of the level 3 seminars. One of the participants mentioned that when they, for example, had automation set up, so when they created a project, there was automatically a support material section set up in OneNote, for example. So it really comes back to the tools that you're using and how you would then connect the two. And you can drag
and how nerdy you want to be.
Yes, absolutely. So I think in this case it really is so tool specific. For me, it typically goes into Todoist when it comes to emails. For more complex projects, I will have some support material over in OneNote. But for most of my support material needs, including when emails show up, they go over in Todoist. I have, when Chrome works for me, for some reason it doesn't work right now, but when it works for me, I have the Todoist plugin to automatically then take an email URL from Gmail and bring that with it over to Todoist. So I have a link back to that email. That works really well for me, nice and easy for me with the way that I work with projects in Todoist, is for me to then integrate that into the specific project. Same goes for invoices that need to be sent. I need the information from the email to be able to send that invoice. So it's nice to have that back and have that ready at hand when you then need it. So that works well for next actions, sending that invoice. It works well for projects, integrating that into the project. So I have that list there, either typically using the plugin, or alternative, sometimes when Chrome doesn't work for me, I have there is the integration in Gmail actually to have Todoist. Not as nice as the plugin in Chrome, but does work. Or you can just email projects or send emails to a specific project in Todoist. So that'll be my alternative to doing that. But it is it is a good point to make sure that you have an easy way to integrate these, because otherwise, like he says, there will be that copy paste work, or there will be some kind of other structure that you then need to maintain. For me, I typically find that, for example, when people are in Outlook, nice and easy to drag that email with the right mouse button, or set up quick steps to easily integrate any email over into the to-do side of things.
Yes, and just to be, be aware of where you put your stuff. Make a structure that works. And if you don't know exactly where things goes, when you can download and buy and download a setup guide for that tool that will give you the different categories you need. David Allen Company has devised a lot of different ones for the most used tools and some of the more peripheral ones, but they still have setup guides for almost any major software that's been created ever. So and gettingthingsdone.com, they have these setup guides. You can download them. I think it's called store.gettingthingsdone.com. I'm not sure, but don't kill me. But go gettingthingsdone.com. You will find the store menu item and go there, and you can download PDFs. It's a $10 or something like that and that's it's a big cup of coffee maybe for $10. I don't know. Or a couple.
In some countries, perhaps a very big cup. Maybe
I'm
bucket
sure.
of coffee.
A bucket of coffee. Yes. But it is well worth setting up your tool correctly and making sure that you have the correct buckets to put your things after the fact. So I don't have anything else to add. Were we at the end of our?
We were, just,
we are.
Big thanks to Akim, to Ivan, to Frans for the questions. You mentioned that you like these listener questions episodes. We really like doing them, so be sure to keep them coming. Hopefully these answers were helpful. And keep them coming. podcast@gtdnordic.dk is still where you can send emails to reach us, and we'll pick it up in a future episode.
Indeed. And we are then at the end, and Lars will then take us out.
Yes. It would not be a proper episode if I did not do that.
No,
so I will wrap up with a quick reminder for you to head on over to vitallearning.eu. It's a beautiful new website. Go and have a look. All the cool new things that we are offering soon or right now already with all the GTD things. Learn more about the things that are coming up. Some really, really cool things that we are genuinely excited to be sharing with you. So go over there and have a look around vitallearning.eu. Outside the Nordics, head on over to cruciallearning.com. That'll help you find your local partners as well. Then, as always, also a quick reminder, keep that calendar blocked, June 17 to 18, 2023. That is when the summer camp will be taking place in Denmark. Morten will be there, I will be there. A lot of great and nice and friendly GTDers will be there. So be sure to still block that. We are meeting next week to start diving into some of the planning and also to align on, I think we'll do some early bird things so people can actually start to sign up already. Also for those of you who have been asking for that. So hopefully we'll be able to provide a link soon to that. Lastly, as always, we really hope that you find these episodes valuable. As we say, if GTD has made a difference in your life, then please consider helping us spread the message to more people by giving the podcast a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, wherever you listen. It really helps the discoverability. So thanks already to those of you who have already done so.
Yes, indeed. We do appreciate it when you give us a rating. It helps us spread the word. And we are doing this for free, and we hope that you give you some values. If you want to pay us back, give us a rating. Preferably a good one. So thank you for listening to us. Another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast is finished, and I will sign off by saying stay safe and stay productive. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.